Knack won't win any Game of the Year awards or, well, basically any awards for originality, but if you play it for short periods of time, it can be surprisingly fun and addictive. Don't let its cute exterior fool you either. Knack is tough as nails, and I think it has a lot to do with why I kept coming back to it, because I always wanted to progress, just a little bit further. Overall, some more variety in the combat system really would have gone a long way in making Knack far more interesting in the long term. But one thing I can tell you, this game looks like a next-gen video game. The sheer level of polish applies to every facet of the game. From silky smooth animation to the wonderfully detailed environments and superb particle effects and textures, Knack really screams next-gen. And when Knack breaks apart into hundreds of thousands of relics, which are tiny little objects that he can fuse together to increase his body size, it's truly impressive how they all come to life when they're joined together to form his awesome looking body. I also really enjoyed the way some of the environments seem to come to life with imaginative enemy designs and simple but highly effective level design. As I already mentioned, Knack is really fun in short bursts. I can't stress it enough, but if you plan to play for about an hour or so, Knack might just surprise you by how much fun it can actually be to play. You move from one area of a stage to the next, taking on countless enemies, rinse and repeat, and you pretty much got Knack all figured out. It's super simple, so really don't expect anything outside that in terms of gameplay. As you progress, you start to absorb relics which increase Knack's overall size. I mentioned these when I talked about the graphics. Enemies that used to take 2 or 3 hits can now be decimated in 1, and the larger Knack grows, the more empowered you feel as a player. The game's also lengthy and, like I already mentioned, really challenging. There are 13 chapters overall, and for the most part, there's pretty much a 2 or 3 hit kill system in place depending on how large Knack is at any given time. And that's on the normal difficulty setting, by the way. Now, that can make the game both extremely difficult and extremely frustrating depending on your skill level. For me, I found that it forced me to take my time with the combat system and really, time my attacks as correctly as possible. And because of that, I became a better player, and then I found it way more rewarding when I would pass some of the more challenging areas, or particularly when I had to down a gigantic boss. There's also a really interesting friend system in place which connects in with the hidden items scattered all over the place. If you pay attention as you make your way through a level, you'll typically see a crumbling wall. Smash it open and you'll find a treasure chest containing a secret item which corresponds to a unique item set. There's a crystal set, a gadget set, and so on. Collect the entire set and unlock whatever passive ability is mentioned in the description of the set. These abilities can be things like extended life, an extra sunstone gauge, etc. What's cool is that if your friends have already played the game, you can see which items they've already collected and then swap out the one that you just found for theirs. And that makes it much easier to complete a set far quicker. Now, if you don't have any friends playing the game though, be prepared to wait until maybe chapter 9 before you finish your first set, unless you're like just crazy lucky. The last thing I want to mention in what I like to always call the good section is the local co-op. It's always a blast. I mean, that's just the way of the way these things work. And as you'd imagine, here it's just as fun. Second player takes on the role of Robo-Knack, and I like it because when he dies, he respawns. And it makes the game far easier, and personally, I think that's the way you should definitely play the game. The narrative is mostly completely forgettable and really nonsensical in the end of the day. Goblins were forced from their home generations ago by the evil, nasty humans. Now they've regrouped and are powerful enough to finally regain control of their lost lands. So you'd assume you take on the role of a goblin chieftain or something like that, but instead you play as a sentient being known as Knack. He was created by a human doctor and is used as a weapon to fight back the goblins. The story never gets any deeper than that though, and during the whole game I was always left saying to myself, damn it, they could have done so much more with this. Now, granted, you don't expect a game like this to have a deep storyline, but because the setup is the way it is, it just seemed to promise more than it actually delivered. Another big issue I have is the fact that there are only 5 core moves to use against your foes, 3 of which are directly tied to the Sunstone system. By smashing Sunstones, you fill up a special meter, which you can then use these 3 special attacks. One it fires a projectile, one causes like a tornado twirl thing, and another one is a shockwave. You also have 2 regular attacks. One is a jump attack, which causes Knack to basically just lunge at his unsuspecting foe, and the other is a basic punch attack. Now, unfortunately, these can't be used in combination with each other because the special moves are gone in a flash, and the jump attack pushes you back, meaning you just use the basic attack, the punch attack, over and over and over again. And the developers did try and spice things up a bit by allowing Knack to absorb other elements besides just the relics in order to grow, such as ice, crystal, and wood. The gameplay also tries new things like having Knack enter like a stealth mode, but it only lasts for maybe like 1 or 2 like little sections of the level before it reverts back to the same gameplay over and over again. I should also mention that you're going to miss your jump attack move quite frequently because the distance is quite precise. So what happens is you go to do a jump attack, you miss, you hit the ground, and then Knack pauses for a minute and leaves you wide open to attack. Keep in mind that 2 hits and you're dead, so you can imagine how frustrating that can get over time. And by now you probably know that the game is incredibly repetitive, and that's why I say, it depends on how long you play the game, because fighting enemies with the same 5 moves over and over again will eventually grate on your nerves, and the lack of any real exploration or puzzle solving also make all the levels feel just a tad too familiar, even though they might look drastically different. Overall, Knack is one of those weird games that actually sounds worse than it is when I talk about it or when you read reviews about it. If you don't play for extended periods of time, or play it with a buddy, it really is fun to play. It's one of those games, try it out and see for yourself what you think, because you might actually be surprised. I found this is a really fun game, again, in short bursts. Thanks for watching everyone, and for the full written review, which goes into far more detail, hit up projectcoe.com.
do